So I was just explaining that we're going to be working on the IOD stamps today. Those of you who have not used the stamps, they're really not that hard. There's a few tips that we're going to go through tonight just to make it a little bit easier. We're going to be using this beautiful stamp that was part of the winter release, or I think it was actually the spring release, but yeah, we're going to use that tonight. Stamps, they're very similar to the old stamps you used to play with when you were a kid, except that they are flat. They're not on a wood base. So when you get your stamp package, they're going to be on these plastic sheets. Okay, so they're all in these plastic sheets, and you're going to choose the one that you want to use. I'm going to use, I think I want to use the strawberries today. Now, when you take it off, I've used this one before, so it's not as hard, but they can be pretty tough to get off, right, Wendy?
Yeah, sometimes you feel like you're going to break them, but they won't rip. Just pull them off.
Take it off. So you pull that off. Now you can use it just as this, just like this is. I tend to like to use up the plastic sheet that comes with the stamps as kind of a base. You can also like cut out the plastic that it comes on and just use that as your backing. But sometimes you want to make scenes. If you take this clear piece, can you see that piece okay?
Yeah.
And you can make a little scene before you stamp. So you're only making one impression, less room for errors that way. So anyways, I like to keep the plastic whole and then just put the stamp on there. And it just sticks right back on, nice and easy. So one tip that the sisters, the IOD sisters, like to suggest is to give your stamps, when you first use them, a light scuff with some sandpaper, just to kind of get that brand new plasticky finish off of them, and it gives them a little bit of teeth to grab onto your paint or your ink. And that's, I guess, the next part of the explanation is that you can either use them with a paint, like a chalk style paint, or I think our preferred method is always using the ink.
Yeah.
So we sell the IOD inks in numerous colors that can also be mixed to make new colors. And then plain ink pads. This one obviously has a black ink we've used on it. But that's tends to be our preferred use, our preferred method, just because it's thinner.
Yeah.
What was that, Wendy?
The image tends to come out more clear and crisp. I think instead of using the chalk paint, I've tried that a few times, but I just can't get it to be quite as like clear.
Yeah. And so when you use the chalk paint, you can use a brayer, which we also sell those, the IOD brayers, and then you just kind of rub the paint on there. My favorite way to do it is to actually just use the ink pad like we said, and then like just apply the ink onto the stamp that way. Everyone does, you know, things differently. But so tonight I have a little tea towel here, and we're going to go through how I did this stamping on this chicken, but I'm going to use a different stamp in this line, which is a little blueberry vine. So I've already scuffed up my stamps. Now a good idea, I think, with using fabric is always to put like something underneath, like a little piece of cardboard, so the ink doesn't come through to, you know, the part of the towel you don't want it to, or you can do these on pillowcases or bags. So just make sure you put something in there as a barrier so it doesn't leak through.
And it kind of helps if you have like a piece of cardboard in between, just to have like a firm
surface
to press the stamp to. So that is helpful. So usually we'll put like a little cardboard in between the layers of the fabric that we're doing.
That's, yeah, 2 good points there. All right, so I've got my stamp on my plastic already. Now I'm just going to refresh my ink pad because it's been a while since I used it, and I want to make sure I have enough ink on there. A little bit goes a long way, just like with paint.
Less is more.
Less is more. It's our favorite saying.
So when you
Okay.
have that sheet down, if you're doing, you know, like one of the stamps that's like Melinda has on there tonight, but then if you want to do wording, it helps to do, like she said, create the scene. So if you put down the stamp that you like, whether, you know, it's whatever image, and then if you want to do your wording on there as well, that way you're just flipping it over one time and doing the stamp. You kind of use it as your backboard almost, but it's plastic. But you can have the whole thing laid out and kind of see how you want it. Practice with it once, maybe on paper before doing it, especially on fabric. If you're doing it on wood, you can always sand it down, paint it, and redo it. But fabric is kind of like, that's it.
One and done.
One and done.
And it's going to be backwards. Remember when you're spelling out your words.
True.
I've made that mistake before. So anyway, so I've got the ink on my pad. I'm just going to, I don't want you to be able to see. So I'm just going to kind of lightly, I think it's hard to see, but I'm going to lightly blot it. And I need one of those cameras. There, I can get the other angle. So I'm just trying to get all of the edges, but I'm also trying not to move it around too much because I don't want it to touch the parts of the plastic that you don't want ink to be. You don't want to transfer. I think we can all remember when we were kids in the rubber stamps and you'd get the ink on the side of the design and then it would have kind of like a border. So I'm going to go back with just like a little wipe. You can do it with a wet paper towel, and you see I got some ink here. I'm just going to kind of clean that up. Make sure there's no extra ink anywhere before I make my impression onto the fabric, because like Wendy said, once you put that down on fabric, it's done. On pretty much anything else where you can paint over, it's not as, it's a little bit more forgiving, but all right. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lay it down. Now I'm going to be very careful and slow and patient with laying it down because I can't, once I lay it down, you don't want it to shift at all or you're going to get a blurry image.
So you have to commit to the spot you're putting it down.
So I'm going to like move anything around my workspace that could get in my way. And I'm just going to put it down. And then I'm going to give it the tickle method, which is just with a very light touch. You are
putting it down because that risks you moving it and it's smearing. So if you kind of just put your fingers down and like go from the center out and kind of just tickle it, they say, put a little bit of pressure, then it should get all the edges, but you're not like trying to push down on it and get it all pressed down.
Just make sure you get all of the edges of the design, because once you lift it, you can't really go back and get it perfect. You know, you can't lay it back down again. I've never had that be successful. All right. All right, here's the moment of truth. I'm gonna lift it and hooray! We got a nice clean image.
Pretty.
I think it's pretty evenly dispersed with ink. You can see all the fine details. That's what's great about the IOD stamps is the amount of detail in them. Like on my chicken here, you can see all the little feathers. Yeah. And here on the berries, you can see the little seeds on the berries, the veins in the leaves. So yay. So it's really not that hard. Obviously, it's something that takes a little bit of practice. You're going to want to try and practice, like Wendy said, on some paper first before you commit onto your actual project, but they're not really that intimidating. Another cool thing about the IOD stamps is the masks that are included. So what the masks are they are these plastic cutouts of the stamp. So for each stamp that is included in your kit, in your set, there is a plastic mask. Of course, this probably isn't the one I want, but I think this is actually it right here. So they pop right out. So see, it's like a little plastic piece. So that way you can layer your stamps. So you can use that when you're making your design. You lay it over the stamp, and then you can stamp over another image here, and it's not going to look, you know, it's not going to be stamped on top of each other. Yeah, so you can make a really cohesive scene. It's a really awesome aspect about their stamps that we really love. What else? Oh, go ahead.
How will you prep that towel so you can wash it and dry it?
Good point. So when you use the stamps or any ink on fabric, even if it's like fat paint or chalk style paint, you're going to want to heat press that. You're going to want to set it with heat with like an iron on the back side before you wash it. You just want to heat that that paint or ink in before you wash it, or it's going to smear when you wash or fade out. So